Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are that you are listening to this. There is no doubt that humanity is currently facing so many challenges that we've not experienced before. And these have thrown up so many questions, begging for answers in the minds of the workers and youths. My name is Comrade Adesina Rasheedat, the Marxist Alternative, the Nigerian section of International Marxist Tendency. This is a maiden edition, an attempt to provide answers to all these questions that are bothering and agitating the mind of Nigerian workers and the youths. We'll be giving answers from the Marxist perspective to all those questions. Tonight, we'll be looking at the topic Marxism and the National Question. And I have with me one of the leading Marxists in Nigeria, Comrade Kazeem, Akinrinde, who will be discussing this topic with me, especially where this topic, there are so many, conception and misconception and misunderstanding, surrounding this topic itself. It will be shedding more light and clarifying all this misconception, around this topic. So, Comrade Kazeem, are you ready?
Yeah, hi, Comrade Rasheedat. I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this we are discussing Marxism and the National Question. From the Marxist point of view, what exactly is this national question? What does it really mean? What does it entail?
Well, thank you once again, Comrade. It's not out of place to say that the national question is one of the most complicated questions that Marxists from history until now has to battle with. It's one of those questions that will say that there's no almighty formula that fits in all circumstances, all the time, and in all places. It's one of those questions that you can't carry it exactly as it applies in one place and think you are going to impose it successfully in another place. It's one of those we refer to as you need to concretize its application in wherever you want to make use of it. National question is talking about question of nationality, question of tensions that usually come out as a result of differences in different nationalities that exist within the same geographical location called nation states. It wasn't an exaggeration when Lenin said, without a proper understanding of this question in Russia, Russian revolution would have been absolutely impossible. And therefore, we can extend it to this in the same way. Without us having a very clear understanding of this question in Nigeria, our aspiration for a socialist revolution is going to be a mere daydreaming. And that's why I think this question is very, very important for Marxists to clearly understand. One of the major issues confronting us from 1960 that we got independence that has not allowed Nigeria to have what can be considered a pan-Nigerian socialist movement. From the little I've familiarized myself with, one of the major obstacles to this is our approach to this question of national question, and I think it's very important. Thank you.
Sorry, comrades. Sorry, we will still go to the application of this. We are still going to narrow this discussion down to the Nigerian situation. But I just want us to have a very good understanding of that question itself. Like you have rightly said and rightly pointed out, this question is not, this agitation for national question is not really a recent agitation. In fact, it has been, according to what you have said now, it has even been during the time of Marx itself. So can you just let us understand, how did Marx itself, Karl Marx, How did they approach the question of this national question? How did they approach it during their own time?
Thank you, Comrade. I think the most significant lesson we can draw from Marx and Engels' approach to this national question is the fact that we have to be extremely flexible on this question. Take, for example, Marx in the 1840s was for the, advised the Ireland nationalist movement, the movement that was agitating for a separation of Ireland from England. Marx advised that they have to align themselves to the working class to the English working class movement, and that the only genuine national movements of the island can only be met with their full support and surrendering all the agitation towards the agitation of the English working class. But the same Marx in the 1860s was 100% in support of even complete separation of Ireland from the English working class. And he approached it from one particular principle, which is the general principle that the Marxists must always take into consideration when this question is before us. And that principle is that the primary intention is to unite the working class. Our intention, no matter what approach we take, is not to separate the working class. It's not in any way in contradiction to what Marx said, that all workers of the world unite. So when he was saying it in 1860, the intention of Marx and Engels was not to separate the Ireland working class from the English working class, but he said that the working class in England will most likely be able to easily overthrow their own working class only if the elites, the ruling class of England, loses their position, loses their land, which they dominate, which from the point of view of the fact that they were the one dominating the land in Ireland. If they are defeated in Ireland, it's easier for them to be defeated in England. So Marx and Engels approached this question, two different positions, one in 1840, another one in 1860, almost direct opposites. And yet, the principle upon which they base this position on still remain the same. That is, from the point of view of what can we be saying to unite and make it possible for workers both in Ireland and in England to successfully overthrow their collective ruling elite. And that is what should be the guiding principle. There's another very important historical lesson that we can also draw, which was on the question of the unity, the formation of the German states. Marx initially campaigned for the working class of Austria and working class of Prussia, which later run with other small states, came together to form Germany. The initial preaching was for them to mobilize and unite from the below. But this was cut across by 1848 revolution, which the bourgeoisie of Germany actually betrayed. This betrayal transferred the responsibility of uniting the Germany into the hands of Bismarck, the ruling elite, the leadership of the ruling elite in Germany at that period. And what we now had, instead of a peaceful unity of the Russian, of the Prussian and the Austrian to form a united Germany, what we had was a forceful true war. Millions of lives perished. Bismarck imposed and forcefully pushed the Austrian to join the Prussian nationality, which later formed the Germany. It was done by force. But despite the fact that it was done by force, Marx and Engels still supported it, although critically. that although this completely useless Bismarck was the one who carried it out, this Bismarck was extreme reactionary. We never wanted it to go this way. But at the same time, we have successfully have a working class of both the Austria and Prussia belonging to the same nationality. And therefore, the overthrow of the collective ruling elite of Austria and Prussia had become easier. We don't like it, but it's progressive. They recognize this as being progressive, but they never, as a result of this, stop their campaign against Bismarck and all what he represented. They still continue criticizing. This is completely unlike what we used to have these days, when people, completely surrender to this the so-called national leadership of on the national movement. Marx never surrendered all his accusation attacks on Bismarck, but he was still able to identify what is progressive in that question and what is reactionary. The leadership was extremely reactionary. The way they carried it out was extremely reactionary, but the action itself was progressive. And Marx and Engels recognized it. This is another very important lesson that we can draw, that you can't carry this formula and just be imposing it everywhere you go. You must concretely recognize and study the society where you want to trail, apply this Marxist position on national question. And that's exactly, the two historical records that I think can be very, very useful for us to understand the position of the great leaders of the past.
Thank you very much, Comrade. I think the key lessons, from what you have been saying so far, is actually the fact that there is no one cap fit all, for the question of national question to just be applied, mechanically to all situations. That the primary thing, the principle, the guiding principle, in whether to determine whether we are supporting, the agitation for national question everywhere, is whether it's going to actually lead to the unity of the working class. And we have to be extremely flexible. You cited example where Marx himself supported it at one instance, and at the other instance, he did not support it. That is why it is a tactical question. And the question of flexibility is always attached to the question of tactics. Thank you very much for that. Now we move on to the other question. And that is, we have read so much about the 1917 Russian Revolution. And also, at least we also read, when you read that history, that the national question also confronted those revolutionaries there, the likes of Lenin, Trotsky, and the rest of them. They were also being confronted, by this question of national question, national agitation. Like you said the other time when you were giving your introduction, that it can be said that if not because of the correct approach to the question of national question itself, the Russian Revolution in 1917 would not have been successful. How did they do it? How did Lenin, Trotsky, and co., the great Russian revolutionaries, how did they approach this question? And what made that revolution, to be successful itself? Can you actually shed more light on this question, Comrade?
Thank you very much. Lenin did more work on national question than any of earlier Marxists before him. And this is not surprising. This question was much more prominent in Russia of that period than at any time. And I think that's one of the reasons why Lenin did a lot of work on this particular question. Alan once said that I didn't mean that Lenin knew that if I had written so much and talked so much about this question, it would lead to many confusion by Marxists. He will have minimized the number of books he read, because most of the misconception actually came in from the writings, and the approach through which Lenin approached this question. Let's first describe how Russia was during this period before the 1917 revolution. We had about 49% of great Russians, nationality, surrounded by small other nationalities. We have Belarusia, you have Ukrainians, you have even Jews, you have Polish, you have so many other small nationalities that surrounded it. And these small nationalities, they were obviously oppressed. In fact, the nickname for Russia at that period was a prison house for all nationalities. That is, it was more of forceful retention of different nationalities within a geopolitical arrangement called Russia, called Great Russia at that period. Therefore, how do you unite the working class and youth of these oppressed nationalities to the working class and youth of the Great Russians, who are the oppressors in this particular instance? Lenin, Trotsky, and the leaders of Russian Revolution of then were from Great Russia mainly. They were Great Russians, therefore they belong to that nationality that oppressed other smaller nationality. Incidentally, which is also very interesting, the woman, one of the greatest Marxist female, Rosa Luxemburg, was a Polish, another smaller nationality within the Russia of that period. Lenin believed that for them to be able to successfully unite, as in for them to win the support of the working class of all the smaller nationality, oppressed nationality, they must clearly state their interests as opposed to the interests of the Tsar, of the ruling elite of the Russia of that period, who had a lot to benefit from oppressing other nationality. But what will Russian working class, if they take power, what will they benefit? What will be of what benefit is it for them to continue oppressing the other nationalities? And that was why Lenin said that one of the key slogans of this period should be that we demand, we defend the rights of other nationality. Their democracy needs to be defended, that self-determination has to be protected up to the point of even if they want to succeed. The intention of Lenin, contrary to what some of these individuals now later misunderstood it to me, was not to create another barrier, another country, because Lenin himself was not doing something contrary to what Marx had said on the question of all workers of the world unite. But that was only way the Bolsheviks could win the confidence and support of the working class and youth of other smaller nationality, without them promising that their interest is not the same thing as interest of the Tsar. There's no way those other nationalities could have joined. But Lenin did not say that this organization called Bolshevik organization, this party, with which we are waging war against the Tsar, against the ruling elite of Russia, he didn't say that let us have Polish branch, let us have Georgian branch, Ukrainian branch. It's just one single organization. It's a single party that they had. It's not divided into any nationality. Lenin never at once stopped criticizing nationalists who were at the head of the movement in all of these smaller oppressed nations. And that's why Lenin always expressed his sympathy, despite the fact that he criticized the position of Rosa Luxemburg, that Rosa Luxemburg was waging war against the leaders, the nationalist leaders of the Polish, which pushed her to the extreme by not recognizing even the rights of self-determination up to the point of secession for the Polish people, which Rosa Luxemburg actually criticized Lenin for accepting. But Lenin said, you belong to oppressed nationality, you can be pardoned. But I come from the oppressor nationality, and I have to say to the people of the oppressed nations that we do not have any interest in continuing their oppression. And that is the only way we can even help you to successfully win the rank and file working class and youth away from the influence of their nationalist leaders. So at the end of the day, Lenin's intention was 100% achieved, in the sense that immediately, even before the revolution, the working class of Georgia, of Ukrainian, of Belarusians had moved massively into Bolshevism They were part and parcel of all the revolution that took place. And immediately that revolution was waged, they asked themselves, where should we go? Why should we leave Russia of the workers to form our own country? And which means the position has been espoused by Lenin. History has confirmed that it was in any way a contradiction of the position of Marx and Engels. It was actually a confirmation of their cry that the workers of the world needs to unite. Lenin never naively thought that by creating a smaller country, they can stand on their own and successfully build a better country for themselves. He recognized that no matter even how powerful a country is the task of the working class of all the world. And it's until all the working class of the world unites, there can be respite for humanity. He never thought of erecting any barrier, more barrier of nation states, but actually to subdue and destroy it, with even not just limited to Russia alone. His intention was actually to extend it to Germany, to all other places around Europe, and therefore, as the beginning for the whole world, to get free.
All right, comrade, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to ask you a question around that, what you have just spoken about. I need you to shed more light. You have told us the concrete condition, upon which Lenin and co, operated in Russia at that particular time before the 1917 revolution. And if you look concretely at the slogan, of the right of nation to self-determination itself, because even Lenin supported the rights of nation to self-determination, up to even secession, as you mentioned. Is that not contradictory when he supported that, and it's also in support of the unity of all the working class? Because I also understand that misconception around the question of national question is also around that slogan, itself. This right, so the right of nation to self-determination, is this something that Marxists should support at all time, irrespective of the concrete situation, that Marxists find themselves? Please, you need to shed more light, on this. And is there any contradiction between that slogan and the slogans of the unity of all the working class? Please, briefly, just shed more light on that, comrade.
All right, thank you once again. As I said, with the concrete condition in Russia of that period, there was absolutely no other way to unite the working class of the oppressed nation with the working class and youth of oppressor nation, other than to let them know and convince them in action that there's absolutely nothing that the working class of the oppressor nation, which is the Great Russian, want to achieve with continuing to oppress, with their continuation of the oppression of these other nations. But how does this relate to the slogan of democratic right of the people to decide on where they want to be? The best way to approach this is, let's take as a form of analogy a marriage counselor who recognize, because it's not even him, it's not by him imposing, it's all constitution now everywhere has recognized the right of divorce, which is not the issue for any Marxist, because it's just basic rights. You have right to divorce at any point in time when you feel like. But can you imagine a marriage counselor who at every point of contact with any couple who knock into his office to ask, to discuss about the problem of their marriage, and the only information he has for everyone is that you have the right to divorce? When they come in and it's just a matter of just helping them to cement their relationship, that's what they have come is how to make that relationship sweeter. Maybe sometimes it's even there are a lot of things they don't understand about their relationship, the couple relationship. and they've come to you to just hear your advice on how to make it work once again. But the only message you have, no matter the nature of the problem your clients bring, is that, come, you have the right to divorce. And that's exactly what our comrades on the left, who sometimes shamelessly call themselves Marxists, always make. That the question sometimes is not so much about the question of the right of self-determination up to the point of decision. That the point sometimes is to put something in the front. Take, for example, using the same counselor, that if what the couples have come to even ask about is on how do we manage the tension that is now generating as a result of me not having, the husband not having enough money. The wife said the job load is already getting too much. We have come to you. Is there any method, any means we can? And the counselor begins to advise on how best to handle this. Then our friend Marxist just interjects you that, no, they have rights of divorce. You need to let them know that there is a right to divorce. And that's the exact mistake that majority of them always make. In Russia at that period, without Lenin putting in the forefront the question of rights of self-determination up to the point of secession, there wouldn't have been unity. But exactly the same thing was put forward in Yugoslavia. It's led to bloodshed because it's not that question always. In as much as Marxists recognize that right, in as much as we defend that right, it's also very wrong to always put that slogan every issue that you come across. And probably when we get to the question of Nigeria and we completely recognize what does it mean in the case of Nigeria, probably it will clearer to us why in some country you raise it, it leads to that unity, you achieve what Lenin achieved in Russia, whereas in other places when you push it across, it leads to bloodshed and more massacre of people of different ethnic groups, as we had in Rwanda and several other places. There are so many other countries where they put it across and it has led to massive bloodshed. Why is this so? And why did this achieve the second, the contrary position in Russia? And I think that is where the confusion actually arises. That the question is not whether Marxists support the right of self-determination up to secession. The problem is at what point should you put it across? Is it in a way to bend to the nationalist agitation and surrender the mass of the working class and youth to the nationalist, criminal, nationalist, reactionary slogan? Or is actually to win the mass of working class and youth away from the influence of these nationalists who are sometimes also bent, in winning the same forces that we always struggle to win?